did the mythical King Arthur of Camelot acquire the Excalibur sword? Was it from the stone or the lake? Steve McCallum, Collector's Park reports. Excalibur is a legendary sword found in Arthurian legends, and it's arguably one of the most renowned swords in history. This sword was wielded by legendary King Arthur, and magical properties were often ascribed to it. In some versions of the story of King Arthur, Excalibur is regarded to be the same sword as a sword in stone. In most versions, however, these are, in fact, two separate weapons. The fascination with the sword is visible in modern pop culture, as Excalibur can be found in various films, television series, and video games. But what is the origin of the Excalibur sword? Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. The story of Excalibur may be tracked back to Geoffrey of Monmouth, Historia Regum Britannia, History of the Kings of Britain, which was written around 1136 AD. And in this piece of work, Excalibur is known by its Latinized name Calibrunus or Calibrin. Excalibur is described as an excellent sword made in the Isle of Avalon. It may be pointed out that in Geoffrey of Monmouth's work, Excalibur does not possess any magical powers. Instead, the author focuses on Arthur's prowess as a warrior. Thus, for instance, quote, Arthur, provoked to see the little advantage he had yet gained, and that victory still continued in suspense, drew out his caliburn, and called upon the name of the Blessed Virgin, rushed forward with great fury into the thickest of the enemy's ranks. Neither did he give over the fury of his assault until he had, with his caliburn alone, killed 470 men. End quote. Now, one or two swords of the legends of Arthur. As was stated, it may be noted that Excalibur is sometimes equated with the sword in the stone. For example, of this is how the story is dealt with in Sir Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, The Death of Arthur, first published in 1485. Other versions of the legend claim that King Arthur obtained this magical sword from another source. In most versions of the story, however, these were two separate weapons. The sword and the stone first appeared in Robert de Burgh's Merlin, in which Arthur pulls out the sword that was set by the wizard in an anvil, which was changed by later writers into a stone. In another version, King Arthur is said to have received Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. The sword was given to Arthur after he broke his sword during a fight with Pellinore, the king of Listenois, famous for his hunt for the questing beast. Now, the powers of Excalibur. While Geoffrey of Monmouth's early description of Excalibur is not of a magical sword, later authors decided to make it so. Excalibur's best known magical property is the ability of its scabbard to heal wounds. This meant that whenever King Arthur had Excalibur's scabbard with him, he could not be hurt. In the Arthurian legends, this magical scabbard was stolen by the king's evil half-sister, Morgan le Fay, who then threw it into the lake. And as a result of this, Arthur lost his invulnerability and was mortally wounded when he fought against Mordred, best known as Arthur's illegitimate son by another of his half-sisters, Morgane, at the Battle of Camlan. And before he dies, Arthur commands one of his knights, Sir Bedivere or Sir Griflet in some versions, to throw Excalibur back into the lake. In one version, the knight disobeys his sovereign twice by pretending to cast the sword into the lake, as he was not willing to throw away such a precious weapon. And when the knight finally throws Excalibur into the lake, a hand reaches out of the water to receive the sword and pulls it under. The origins of Excalibur. So where did Arthur acquire the sword Excalibur? Well, the truth is that the story of King Arthur is generally considered as just that, a story, with his actual existence doubtful, so there is no set truth. If you think oldest is best, then the first scribe of the story was Geoffrey of Monmouth in his 12th century version. He wrote of its the origin only Excalibur, Caliburn, best of swords, which was forged within the Isle of Avalon, which removes its mystical origin, and states clearly where it was made. The first to speak of its origin from the stone is Robert de Baron in his poem Merlin, later in the 12th century, and in both the Vulgate cycle and Mallory's version, it's made clear the sword in the stone is not Excalibur, as it is broken in battle and is replaced by the Excalibur from the lake. It should be remembered that all of these writers were transcribing stories which originated in the 6th to 8th centuries and had been passed on from oral to written traditions over hundreds of years before the sword and King Arthur were brought together. Although the version by Geoffrey and Monmouth has some basis in historical record, there's also a lot which is not traceable, and his account is generally considered more romance and history with the necessary dramatic embellishments. It seems then there is no truth readily available. If the real Excalibur did not come from the stone, later stories of the magic sword breaking seem incompatible. If the sword from the stone breaking is thought true, the replacement from the lake is needed. Caliburn was forged in Avalon, but how it came to Arthur's hand is not stated. And if you want to believe all the legends, the existence of two swords is a requirement. Now, as the magical sword of King Arthur Excalibur has appeared in a number of modern films, television series, and even video games, most of the time there is a quest in which the protagonist or the film game has to search for the magical sword. This is an indication that Excalibur still fascinates our imagination, and like the stories of its wielder, King Arthur, will continue to do so well into the future. This was originally from Ancient Origins and published here under Creative Commons on Collective Spark. Thank you for your support, and please leave your comments. And a special thank you to all my supporters of my Patreon channel. Thank you so much.